All right. Well, welcome to the line, ladies and gentlemen. We're so glad to have you guys here. I'm here with Scott.
Yes.
With Cleveland, and it's Cleveland, not Cleveland Brothers, right?
Cleveland Electric.
Cleveland Electric. Scott, what's your full name and title there at Cleveland?
I'm Scott Gray, Cleveland Electric. Like you said, I'm the Assistant Field Services Manager.
Okay. And it's Liz, right?
It is Liz.
Liz, and you, what's your full name in the organization that you're with?
Yeah, so my name is Liz Campbell, and I'm the Director of Chapter Development for the Atlanta Electrical Contractors Association.
Okay.
Or AECA, like that's way easier. It's a long title.
AECA.
You know, we love our acronyms here in
AECA.
Construction. That's right.
AECA. I like that. I like that. I don't know if she does, but I think that's good.
That's what she gets called anyway.
AECA.
Like it or not.
Like it or not. Wow.
That's right.
Well, I believe that she's the one that told you that you were going to come sit down with us, so I do know who's in charge.
She promised me an AECA cup. So
I did.
I showed up.
Him? What about
Super.
me? It's my podcast.
I can go get you one. It's fine.
Well, here at the line, welcome to the line. Thank you for stepping up to the line. I'm going to move this because I don't think it belongs to either one of you, and I don't want that in the camera. So for those of you who are listening, we're here in, I guess this is Gainesville? Gainesville, Georgia. Apologize, I've been doing a lot of traveling, don't really know where I am.
It's all right.
And we're sitting here at the Tool Expo, which it is really for high school kids to come and experience and see what you guys are doing and what you have. So I'd like to just talk with you both a little bit about your origins and how you got into the industries that you're in. And Liz, why don't we start with you and,
Sure.
and how you ended up at AECA?
Yeah, so I don't come from construction at all. I actually get out in the high school, so I tell this story a lot. When I was in high school, I was going to go and be a nurse, and because my dad's in the medical field, my mom is in education, and so that was going to be me, right? Because we were all sold that college is the access to high-paying jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was I got into college and I hated it. And so I was like, I'm not going to spend loan money on anything I'm not really convinced that I want to do.
Yeah.
So made my way through sales, things like that. Was in real estate, and I was actually trying to hire a girl to do my transaction coordinating. She worked in this, what I thought was a small drywall company, and she actually flipped the script on me and was like, you should do, account management and recruiting. And I was like, you want me to come in and hire like stinky construction guys? And she's like, actually, I think that you would really enjoy it.
Guys like Scott, right?
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
right. Totally stinky. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. And so, I interviewed with this company and loved it. I was like, oh my gosh, these are salt of the earth, very black and white and transparent, a little crazy. I loved it. And so I got started and literally fell in love with the workforce side because I couldn't believe that I grew up here in Atlanta and never heard about all of the free training opportunities.
Yeah.
And so I really haven't left. And I used to work for the AGC, so Associated General Contractors here in Georgia, another workforce development foundation, Construction Ready, and then made my way over to AECA about 4 years ago. So get out in the schools, promote apprenticeships, get to plug, contractors like Cleveland Electric into the high schools, things like that.
Well, I mean, I find it really interesting that you're part of an electrical association and you're part of an electrical contractor. These are things that are really close to my heart because one of the things I love about being an electrician is that everybody thinks it's so complicated and it makes them nervous. And once you learn it, it's not really that hard, but we get to do a lot of work.
We don't tell them.
We don't tell them, right.
It's a
I
well-kept secret.
I literally had a gentleman ask me today, he goes, I need you to help me with this. And I'm like, well, why? That's so simple. And he's like, yeah, but you're an electrician. I don't even want to mess with it. Like, you didn't even want to look at it. So you said two things that really struck me. And one of them, you talked about how you loved it. And I think you alluded to this, but I really want to highlight this and kind of drill down on this. What was it that you loved about it? What was the
So I loved the people.
I knew that's what it was.
Yeah, the people, I was just amazed. Like I said, there are a lot of crazy things that happen in the field, right? And on the corporate side of things, you know, it's all this flowery language. It's, you know, all of those terms like we're going to, you know, park this here and we'll circle back to it. There's none of that in construction. And I was like, wow, this is really, really refreshing. And the relationships, and I was just blown away by people who had been with the same company for over 20 years. I'm like, that is not common in the corporate world. So I loved that. And the other part was, you know, the ability to kind of reach back and talk to the high school Liz, right? That maybe that message needed to hit.
Yeah.
That was really meaningful for me.
Yeah.
So.
Scott, wouldn't you say when she talks about, you know, there's no flowery language? I mean, there is some flowery language.
It depends on your definition of flower.
I mean, that's true. But wouldn't you say, and I want to draw this out because I think what you're talking about is authenticity.
Yes, 100%.
And I think that, you know, our culture and our society actually right now, I deal with a lot of Generation Z. And we deal with all generations, quite honestly, but I feel like this current generation is so desiring of authenticity.
Yes.
Matter of fact, I'll go a little farther and say, I believe everybody's desiring of that. That's what I love. I don't want to be in relationships with people that are not authentic. And when I find myself in a relationship that, I mean, the opposite of authentic is...
Inauthentic.
I was going to say fake.
Fake.
But yes, inauthentic, she's way more educated.
Flowery.
Flowery, exactly.
Language.
Exactly. But wouldn't you say in the trades, the reason for that is because we can't do our jobs and be fake, or it won't work, especially in electrical.
No. If you're definitely no fluff.
Yeah.
You're not going to
right.
get patted on the head.
Yeah.
You know, it's real because we got a job to do.
Yeah.
And it has to get done.
Yeah.
So, yeah, most of the very short, blunt, and when I say short and blunt, I don't mean, and that doesn't have to be rude. It doesn't have to be nasty. It doesn't have to be mean. It's just, hey, this is what we got to do, and this is how we got to do it.
Exactly.
And we can't get done till we get started. So
I love
let's
that
go.
line. We can't get done till we get started.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the hardest part, is just getting started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of the draws of our industry and all the trades.
Yeah.
You know, because we're electricians and we have a little spot in our heart for the electricians, but you know, all the trades, we're all working together on job sites, and it's all like that. You know, there is that commonality regardless of what trade you're in. Right. You know, got to get done.
Yeah. Well, I think, and I know that I'm probably going to get a lot of hate maybe talking so much about electricians, but we are the trade that has to work with everyone.
Yeah.
We're the first boots on the ground and we're the last boots to leave.
Always.
Yeah. And so it's like, that is really essential. I mean, we got to work with painters, we got to work with drywallers, we got to work with excavators, we got to work with everybody. And so you don't want to be an electrician if you can't handle collaborating with other people, because
it's part of the gig.
It's part of the gig. The other thing that you said, Liz, that I want to be careful because I don't want it to seem like I'm correcting what you said, but I'm going to correct what you said.
That's fine. I'm not offended.
Well, we'll see if I'm right or wrong. Okay. But you said you were kind of blown away at all the free training. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I have been an owner, and as an owner, and maybe Cleveland would agree with this, it's not free.
That's
training.
right.
But these companies and these people want to invest in you.
100%.
And we talked about this a little bit earlier, and I think it's important, especially since we're at an event here where there's a lot of young people coming in, but it doesn't matter what age you are.
That's right.
You know, I did a podcast with Mike Holt, and before we did the podcast, Scott, do you know who that is?
Absolutely.
Okay. Most people don't, unless you're an electrician. But I did a podcast with him, and before we did the podcast, we were walking around talking, and he got a phone call, and it was a gentleman who was taking his California test, and he was 60 years old.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and I was so struck by, it doesn't matter what age you are, and the career that you can enter into, again, it's about the people that you work with. And to be able to enter into an industry where the entire industry is making it difficult for you to be fake or inauthentic, if we're going to use flowery language. So, yeah, I think that's important to recognize that those are the companies that are at events like this that are spending time, because you get a salary, and I'm assuming that you're not doing this pro bono, that you're getting paid today. You're not sure
I'm
about
sure.
that yet.
I'm sure hoping so.
But the reality is that's an investment. And anytime that a company is willing to make that investment, I think that's a company worth looking at. So
I agree, and I think that is one of the things that whenever I'm out talking to high school students, right? Obviously, I'm not the only one in the room, so you'll be surrounded by all of the trades, and regardless if I'm talking amongst my peers and we're all presenting these trade opportunities, or if it's me and hospitals or things like that, you want to talk to students about when they're making their next steps, how is that company investing in you, right? And I think that's a bigger message that, on someone who does workforce development like myself, like that's what we need to be, speaking to parents about. It's like our companies are investing in your student.
Come on.
And we're going to take care of them, especially being on the union side, there's full benefits.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing, with trying to battle our stigma, in the broader landscape of workforce development is, hey, like we actually do invest. We care about these students, and this is actually a viable, thriving business.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the cool thing about it is I believe personally right now the trades are one of the most secure, more than they ever have been in my career, jobs in society right now because of all the things that are happening in the technology. Building is not going away.
That's right.
It really isn't. So, Scott, tell me a little bit about your origins. How did you end up, at Cleveland? I heard you've been there for a little while.
Been there for a minute.
Yeah.
I've probably been in the industry about 30 years.
How long have you been at Cleveland?
26.
26.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I love how humble he is. I've been there for a minute. Yeah.
I like telling people that our particular company, I've been there 26 years. I am nowhere near the longest tenured employee
Wow.
at my company. I'm not even on the first 2 or 3 pages of the list of the names. A lot of longevity at our particular company at Cleveland because they invest in people.
That's right.
They, it is that closeness. People have been there a very, very, it's not uncommon for people to be at our company 30, 40 years. Easy.
Are they there because of the money or are they there because of the culture?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
This
It
is the
is-
guy
it
that
is
wants to
both.
hire you if you're listening. So,
yes, it is, of course, everybody wants to get paid.
Yeah.
But what do you value that culture?
yeah. Yeah.
There is a value.
Absolutely.
It's less value to some people. It's more value to other people, but it's got a value. And when you work for people, and of course, I'm prejudiced toward Cleveland, but there's a lot of companies out there that care about their people.
Yeah.
They want to watch out for them.
Yeah.
You work with somebody as long as we work with people. Hey, you were there when they got married and they had kids and, grandkids and all this kind of stuff. And there's that closeness. There's that family
Yeah.
feeling amongst people. You care about them.
Yeah.
And you want to take care of them and
For sure.
do what's best for them. And
Absolutely.
I love getting people in there. I like seeing people that, man, I remember the first day you came to work here and now you're a superintendent.
Yeah.
And they've made their way up the ladder over years. So that's rewarding for me. Like I say, it's the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can go get a paycheck in a whole bunch of places.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you have that when it's not a struggle to get up and come to work in the morning,
Yeah.
it's like it's gonna be a good day.
Yeah.
That makes getting up and riding in early a whole lot easier.
I think the people that you work with really, there are days that are hard. I mean, welcome to life. That's what it is.
Right.
And why not face it with a team of people that care about you and that you care about them? I mean, I have had more hard days in my life than I have had easy days. But man, it is about the men and women that I stand beside on the job site, and especially in electrical. When a problem arises, I just experienced this the other day. I was asked to come be a part of a problem-solving meeting. That's what we call them. And I had no idea how to fix the problem. And by the end of the meeting, it looked like I had come up with the idea, but only because of the things that the other people said that triggered different things in my mind. And so when you bring people together like that and you work together, you solve things that you can't solve alone. You know,
Right.
and I think that is, if there was one thing that I would say to, and again, not just to young people, but to people who are looking for satisfaction in their work, it is, you know, we all need a paycheck. But I would say, for me, I value culture just a little bit above. Like, I would
Yeah.
be willing to get paid a little bit less and work with really solid people.
100%.
Yeah. And not a lot less.
Not a lot, just a little bit.
Just
a
like a little bit.
But I mean, the reality is there is plenty of work out there. And I think that companies like yourself and people that are in your association, I think that those companies are the companies that are going to be here another 100 years. You know, and that's something to speak about. I mean, Cleveland started in I'm reading this off your shirt,
Yes.
1925.
It's our 100th anniversary.
That's pretty cool. So just to my electrical business that I started 20 years ago in 2005, and so that's 2025. You got 100 years. I'm coming for you.
Yeah, that's right. Nipping on our heels. But we're proud of
You should be.
being here
You should be.
in Atlanta for a family-owned company, still a family-owned company.
Wow, really?
I was in the elevator with Mr. Cleveland yesterday.
Wow.
You know, they're still here. They're still the family's still involved in the company for 100 years. We're proud of that.
Yeah.
And that helps. You know, you talk about the culture. It got started with our company a long time ago. There's a lot of these construction companies that have been around a long time.
Yeah.
Doing, you know, employing people, giving people jobs for a
Yeah.
long time. And so that's why we get up and we do what we do. You know,
Yeah.
you're part of one of those blocks
Yeah.
in that company's establishment over the years.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's cool. I'm going to interject just on the association side.
Yeah.
They're one of our founding members. So they predate our association,
Whoa,
which
that's
is
pretty
really
cool.
cool. And being able to understand that legacy, that Atlanta history, again, growing up here, it's cool to say, hey, I know the people who did the Biltmore Hotel and things like that,
Yeah.
because, you know, it actually does matter to Gen Z.
Yeah, it
And
does.
a lot of people don't give Gen Z enough credit, right? But they are listening.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to be able to convey that type of, you know, historical timeline, you know, especially again on that stigma. You know, this is not just we're just going to pack up and, you know, close up shop when a recession comes around, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not a recession-proof industry by any means, but the culture is what keeps, you know, companies going for 100 years.
Well, I think the other thing that's really cool about organizations that are willing to invest in culture, even if people don't stay there 26 years. I was telling you when I met you earlier, Scott, that I work with someone who worked at Cleveland, and he is significantly older than me. Sorry, Bob, if you listen to this. But he talks about his time there in a positive light, and that culture affects people. And if we want to, like, Blackline exists to lift the view of the skilled trades. That's our vision, and our mission is to communicate value in people. And the reality is, when you have a culture, that's what you're doing, is you're communicating value. And I think that's something specifically in the trade world that's been lost, is that we're communicating that the men and women that do the service in the service-based industry have value.
Yes.
I have a little confession for you both here. A couple weeks ago, I was in my office going over paperwork. I'm stressed about different things. I'm overwhelmed, and I'm dealing with things and trying to come up with solutions. And in the office building, they had a company come in, and they were, you know, balancing the system, you know, HVAC work. And the gentleman is there in the hallway as I'm going to get copies made, and, you know, I'm thinking about my work, and he's there in the hallway, and I walked past him 3 times. Didn't say hello, didn't introduce myself. I treated him like the help. And because I was focused on what my anxiety was or what I was worried about. And I'm literally looking at, I have this coin that I carry with me that has our values on it. I'm looking at that, and I'm like, So I stopped myself when he came down off the ladder, and I put my hand out and I said, "Hey, I'm Joshua." And he told me his name, and I apologized to him. And I said, "I've walked past you 3 times, and I shouldn't do that because you're doing this work here so that I can sit in my office and do paperwork and actually be comfortable." And the reality is, I think as a culture and a society, we look past the plumbers, the electricians, the drywallers. We look past those people, and we just live the life that we live, and we think it should just work. And we have no idea what it takes to do the work.
We go to schools. I'm glad Hall County's putting on this tool expo. And I know Liz will attest. We go to schools and we talk about, yes, the electrical field, but we talk of, other trades. And a lot of the kids in the high school, they've never heard anything about it.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? We show them our little flyer, and it was like, I can make this much money?
Yeah.
Yeah, easy. And it was like, well, what does this cost? And I was like, it don't cost you nothing.
Yeah.
You pay for some books.
It's hard work.
There it is.
You
It's
go to
hard
work.
work.
You go to
Yeah.
work. You invest your time. We'll invest in. We'll teach you how to be an electrician. You just show up with some want to, and
Yeah.
That's right.
and we'll teach you how to be an electrician. We don't expect you to know.
Yeah.
You can learn
Yeah.
and make money at the same time.
Yeah.
And so many of these schools, a lot more schools now have the trades, the programs and stuff, but there's still a lot of them, and we have teachers come up and they've never heard about the electrical apprenticeship before, and they're looking at and they're like, is this for real?
Yeah.
And yeah, every day.
And
Yeah.
a career change is possible.
Yes.
At
And-
any age.
and I've had teachers that'll look at me and they'll say, well, my son's interested in this. He just doesn't know it yet. And, can I
Yeah.
take a few of these flyers? Absolutely. So being able to do things like this and this tool expo and get some of these kids exposed to some of the trades that they've never heard. They've just been told you got to go to college or you're going to starve to death.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you ain't got to do that.
Well,
you can.
Who
Liz,
built
you're
the
a perfect
college?
example.
Yeah, who built the
Exactly.
college?
Who built the college? Boy, that's going to be in the trailer. Who built the college?
Right. Yeah. The electrician that built the college is making more money than that professor teaching
right.
the class.
Yeah.
And when you tell them that, and they're like, "Well, man, I want to know some more about this."
Yeah.
So that's why we come to places like this today.
I feel like in the trades, and then I want to ask you both a question because we've reached that point in the podcast that I want to kind of break it up a little bit. But I think in the trades specifically, it's one of the reasons that Blackline exists. We've done a really bad job at telling our story, at talking about who we are and what we do. It's no different, except for the numbers are bigger now. When I started as an apprentice, I was told, "Oh, we just need people. We just need people," and that was a long time ago. And now, I think it's something like 400,000. We have a shortage in the United States of over 400,000 electricians.
Yep.
And it's not just electricians. Something like another 380,000 welders. There are multiple things where we have shortages in the trades, and that is because we have kind of set back a little bit on our laurels with telling our story, and the educational organizations have not. They've done a really good job at marketing, at lobbying, and doing those things. And I think part of it is in the trades, we really struggle with kind of being like, well, I don't want to promote myself. We struggle with self-promotion, and it's like, and it's because the trades are made up of the salt of the earth people that you talk about, and some butt heads, but we're weeding them out.
They're plumbers.
Wow.
I love it.
Yeah.
They're going to say the same thing about the
That's true. That's true. Well, you know how many times I've been told that I don't know what a broom is?
Oh,
So,
see, I love
yeah.
that. That's always my favorite part. It's just like all of the intertrade.
Oh, yeah. We all work together, but we give each other the appropriate hard time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it.
Well, and Scott, they make fun of us the most, so we know that means that we're
Exactly.
the best. I mean, just,
Ex-
yeah.
I can't help it.
Solid.
I'm going to pay for that. I'm gonna pay for that. This is going out online. No, in all reality, I think that's something that we need to do a better job of focus on is telling our stories, and because they're good stories too, they're interesting, and so. Well, I want to ask you both a question. Liz, I'll start with you. What is one thing, a tool or a piece of gear, that you cannot live without?
Let me think about this because I'm not in the field, right?
Yeah.
So let me think about this on how would be more considered, I guess, more the office side.
Heads up, you're going to be asked this question in
I
just
know.
a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So she's going cold, and you have
I know.
time to think about what I'm going to ask you. So don't say a Klein screwdriver. Everybody says that.
No,
That's not
absolutely
kind.
not.
It would be,
I
it
have
would be
my
Milwaukee,
answer.
right? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. So honestly, on the tool side for me, just this is going to be a personal one. Other than just I'm a kind of a data nerd, so I
Yeah.
would say like the workforce development tracking tools, right?
Yeah.
Which, whether that's Bureau of Labor Statistics, I do like those, but I'm not going to promote those heavily. But like my actual like day-to-day tool,
Yeah.
this is going to be kind of lame. But are you familiar with Rocketbook? So
Like the notebook?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I love the Rocketbook. So for you, Scott, you probably don't know. I have a spiral bound notebook, and the pages are reusable. And I'm a note taker. I'm still a little old school, but I like it because it's got a QR code in the bottom right corner. So once I'm done with the notebook or done with the page, I can scan the QR code, and it will actually take a photo and drop my notes in Dropbox. And so
Liz, that's
I need
awesome.
to get in on that.
That's
so
awesome.
I am kind of a dork like that. Like I need the accessibility, and so yeah, that's my tool.
I love that. I mean, that's something. I have a notebook. I literally have a notebook in my pocket. I have a notebook in my
Always.
briefcase. I am a firm believer in physically writing things down.
Me too.
I think it does something in your brain. And I know if anybody's listening to this and they've heard the podcast before, I say this a lot, but it is so worth it. There's even science behind it that it helps with your memory.
It does.
I journal every day, and I do that because it helps with my cognitive thinking, and I need help with that a lot.
Me too.
If I write it down, I can remember it. But if I don't write it down, it's gone.
Same.
Yeah.
Like you might have sent me an email. We might have had a whole conversation, and I don't remember it. But if I write it down physically, I'm like, oh yeah, I talked to Scott. This is the student's name, or whatever the note is.
I often write things down, and I never look at it again, but I don't forget it.
Right.
I mean, it's very helpful in that way. All right, Scott, you're on. Your
I'm
one
going to
thing.
say in our guys in the field, and maybe not just our typical journeyman, but more so our foreman, our general foreman, our superintendents, the tools that they need nowadays. It's their iPads, their laptops. It's not, where we're at today, the technology in construction. It's not you walking around or got this apprentice following you around with a handful of prints anymore. Everything, the technology, just in the world in general, is come so far in the last 20
absolutely.
years.
Oh,
Now
even
we've
the last 5 years.
I agree.
5
Please.
years. We've got an iPad sitting there. It's got all the prints. It's got all our prefab.
Isn't it
The
crazy?
model, you can sit there and run through
cool.
the entire job and follow a conduit from one end of the building to the other, simply there on your pad. You get, our change orders now. Used to, you found out there was a change order last week.
Yeah.
It's instantaneous. Our prints are updated. Without that, you can't do these just wide open jobs that we're just the production on the jobs is so fast paced that you would never be able to do it with that handful of prints
Yeah.
That's right.
anymore. So I think, and a lot of people, they may not realize, these kids that we're talking today, just how technologically advanced construction work in general is. It's not just a bunch of dudes out there pulling strings like we used to, and hope you got the latest print.
Right.
So my answer would be this: the technology part of construction and where we're at now. It's a must.
Yeah.
You have to be there, and that's where maybe a lot of the older guys like myself, we might be a little behind, but these kids that are coming out of school now, man, they just pick up on it.
They do.
It's second nature. They don't blink twice at it. It's like, how did y'all do this before? You know,
Right.
how did y'all ever build
We
anything?
wrote down our material orders on a scrap of cardboard. That's how we did
Right.
it.
We had a
written-
speed square.
Yeah, I've written more stuff on cardboard with a Sharpie than anything in my life.
That is true. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think what you're talking about there is so fascinating to me is, you know, especially, and just to speak to, Mike Holt would say dinosaurs, to old timers. The reality is technology isn't bad.
I go with seasoned.
That's right.
Mike would say that means you are a dinosaur.
Yes.
It's like my mother. She'd be like, I'm not old, I'm mature.
Yes.
Yeah. But I mean, you're talking about that technology, and this isn't an advertisement for Procore, but like that's a program
Yeah.
that I have used, and it's like you said, change orders. The guy in the field gets to know it because communication is what it's all about.
That's right.
And if we're going to make money on a job, or we're going to be effective on a job, whether in construction or in anything, it's about communication. And what that has done, what the technology, the iPads and those things has done, is it's created this instant way to communicate from the office to the field, and also for us to actually track things. I remember the first time that our company shifted to a time tracking app, you know, instead of paper. Like we used to have a clipboard with a spreadsheet that you would fill out, you put your cost codes in and whatnot, and now it's like there's no excuse.
That's
right.
Like, and then there's no like submitting the report or someone creating the report.
It creates
Whatever
itself.
the gremlins are in the iPad, they do that. So, and it's essential. And I would say to the old timers, which I'm getting closer to being one of, you know, because technology is continuing to advance in such a way. Technology is not bad. It is how we use it, and the same dinosaurs or old timers were saying when we came out with the wheel. No, I'm not gonna put things on a wagon. That wheel might fall off and things will fall out. Like, I mean, we can always be against it, and technology is all in how you use it. It's all in how you use it. So I agree with you 100%. That is an essential thing, even specifically for construction, that totally changes the game in the way we're able to do projects. I mean, how about like the fact, you know, BIM modeling, you know, or
Yes.
Revit, you know, being able to, I love going into Revit and being able to see a 3D conduit rack and be like, oh, the HVAC technician needs to move his ductwork because we can't move our conduit, obviously. So,
That's right.
you know,
The electrician always moves his conduit.
yeah, that's why I said that. Yeah. If there's a sprinkler head in a tile, you're moving your light. That's just the way it goes. So, yeah.
What I think is cool, I'm just going to interject on the construction
I
technology side.
apologize. We're like
No,
talking
I
like,
love it.
like old
No,
boys here.
no, it's totally fine. Because
mainly
I love the technology side, and I
Yeah.
think that's a huge draw for this new generation. 100%, right? One of the things that I think is really unique about construction technology specifically is it's not like they're just creating all of this from like this ivory tower of technology, right? They're bringing tradesmen in to verify this
Yes.
technology.
Yes.
And so, you know, obviously there's some resistance in the field. I get that. At the same time, for this incoming generation, it is very simple. And so they have put the human aspect into the technology, which I love that aspect. And as far as, you know, selling that to a student is
Yeah.
huge. Because I'm like, look, we'll teach you to be an electrician. I can teach you all of this technology. It's just software.
Yeah.
It's just software. And so that part is really cool to me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you're talking about Revit, Procore. All of it is very user friendly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that part is really nice.
Well, and I mean, it's a great opportunity for us to also, we're opening up the market of opportunities for people in construction or the trades.
Right.
Because it's not like you have to run conduit. It's
Right.
not like I mean, there are so many different opportunities within an organization, and everybody's job is important. You know, it's like you think about the human body, and you know, you have fingers and toes, elbows, and everything, and it's like it all works together for us to be able to live. It's the same thing in an organization that you can. One part is no less important than the other.
Right.
And there are so many opportunities being created by that technology with people who you would never think, oh my goodness, you work for a construction company? But,
Right.
you know, so
And they wear a collared shirt every day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's another that technology side of it. We have a lot of the most of the people in our BIM department, they were electricians.
Yeah.
And then they moved into that area of the company. And like you said, it takes all of that.
Yeah.
You know, they're not there just to give them a job. It's required, you know, to do these jobs that we do these days. You've got to have all these different, it's not just the guy out there in the ditch.
Yeah.
So yeah, guess what? He's just as important as the guy that's
right.
modeling all this prefab stuff.
Yeah.
And doing the Revit, because without both of them, none of this is going to work.
Absolutely.
It takes everybody.
Well, maybe, so you bring up something that I think is important. I was just having a conversation with my daughter. She's 19, going out into the world and talking about what it is that she wants to do and trying to figure things out. And, you know, you talked about those people going into those opportunities. They were electricians. And honestly, I got to where I am because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And my dad said, well, learn a trade first. And then if you want to go to college, go to college. And I was having this conversation with my daughter, and I'm curious what you both would have to say to this, but I've been saying this phrase a lot. I say, you do the work and everything else will come.
That's right.
And meaning, you know, it really doesn't matter what you do. You know, I had dreams and aspirations of different things, and I realized probably about 10 years in to be an electrician, the opportunities that hard work created for me. Just doing the work. Mm-hmm. And you said this when we were getting started here, you said, well, we just need to get started. And I would say, what would you say to young people about that, in being like, oh, well, I want to be working in BIM. I will bet you that those electricians are so much better suited to be working with that software. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, all right, let's just talk about this. Who's ever worked with an engineer who's worked in the field and one who hasn't? No offense, guys, if you're listening. There's a difference.
Yes.
There's a
huge difference.
Yeah.
big difference.
Yeah. And so what would you guys say about doing the work?
I'm going to be a little cheesy here.
Ah,
right?
that's fine.
All right. So the only time that, so hard work comes before success.
Boy, there it is.
So that's the tagline. I won't tell you my whole joke, but hard work comes before success, right? And especially with this new generation, everything is so instantaneous, right?
Yeah.
It's a unique opportunity on the training side, right? Because we very much are in the midst of a generation that wants that gig economy. And look, like the trades are great for that because it all builds on each other, right?
Yeah.
But the reality here is we have to do a great job of also selling, like, it's hard work.
Yeah.
It is definitely hard work, but it's extremely rewarding, right? And so to your point about, the engineers, I would never tell a student not to go get that electrical engineering degree.
Yeah.
But the reality is we do a lot of engineering without that degree. So it's a different training opportunity, right?
Yeah.
But like we just said, the better BIM modelers, the better prefab managers are the ones who've actually installed, and so that's the reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For those who are listening that don't know what BIM is, why don't you just describe that real quick for them, Scott? Like, tell them what the initials stand for.
Building information modeling.
Wow, Scott, your voice sounded beautiful.
See, I don't have to.
That was really good. That
Thank
was really
you.
good. I love that.
I don't have to have the answers. I just have to know where to find them.
That is the right answer. Yeah.
But
But
I don't think it's called BIM anymore. I think we've moved into VDC, right?
VDC
Which
now.
is virtual design and construction.
Exactly. That one I knew.
she just called me old.
Yes,
No, I'm just saying, I
dinosaur.
just found that out, like, I don't know, 6 months ago. They were like, oh, we're moving away from calling it BIM. Like,
Yeah.
Fancy.
Yes.
What would you say about doing the work?
So many people that I know started out just, dude, I need a job.
Yeah.
And, brother need a paycheck. And they started being an electrical apprentice. And then they say, oh, well, I see this while I'm on a job, and it was like this project management. I'd like to get into that. Or electrical engineering. Well, all of a sudden this guy, well, hey, I'm taking a few classes at night, while I'm
Absolutely.
working.
That's right.
And, and then some people come on to be electrician and it's like, man, I think I'd rather be a pipe fitter.
Yeah.
They never knew they wanted to be a pipe fitter till they got on a job site.
There it
They saw this guy and it was like, hey, I think I'd like to get into welding, and or all of a sudden the welding, hey, that electrical stuff looks pretty interesting to me.
Yeah.
You know, then they start talking and people will bounce trades because
Yeah.
they get exposed to stuff that
you wouldn't get exposed to.
They never would have known unless they came out and started doing the work.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of guys that, you know, move up within not just our company, but many companies. They get into project management. They get into estimating. They get into the engineering side of things, you know, because they put in that work first.
Yeah.
And they say, okay, hey, maybe I'll kind of ease over into that area, or get into the VDC department. Hey, you know, I got a little computer in me, you know, and I was going to call them computer nerds, but I was trying not to.
It's all right.
But, you know, hey, that interests me, and maybe
Yeah.
I start seeing what I need to do to kind of get into that side of the industry. So they put in that work first, and then they got exposed to things that they never even knew existed. And all of a sudden, there's an opportunity there. Hey,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, here I am, a project manager for an electrical contractor, and I started off just because I needed a paycheck.
Yeah.
And so you put in that work, and opportunities come if you put that time in.
You know, I find it. My wife, she has a cut flower farm where she grows
that's
flowers,
cool.
and sometimes I'll help her, and she's putting seeds in the ground, and she works throughout the year, and I believe opportunity is a lot like, she's going to love that I'm using this analogy. It's a lot like a flower, and is what I mean by that is you put the work in.
That's right.
But opportunity only is revealed if you put the work in.
That's right.
Otherwise, the opportunity that you think you've gotten is not worth it. That's the reality of it. So, well, just to shift gears a little bit here, talk to us a little bit about why AECA is important, why associations in general, because, you know, I know the cool part about our industries is there's always new companies being started.
Mm-hmm.
There are guys that probably have left Cleveland and started their own things and been very successful, and then guys that maybe haven't, and girls. The reality is, I think it's important for startups and other people in the trades to understand why associations matter. And so if you could just give us a little bit of feedback on that.
Yeah. So, you know, especially, look, going out and talking to high schools,
Yeah.
the association thing just goes right over their heads, right?
Yeah.
But the reality here is, I know on the association side, look, we do continuing education, you know, especially for keeping your CEs, your, you know, credits up for, you know, your license, things like that. So we do continuing education. We have our goal is to make our contractors better contractors.
Yeah.
So like I said, I love all the data side. So I love to go to all the conferences and kind of be on the forefront and at least generally knowledgeable about what is going on the technology side, right? So there are those things, you know, getting members that will benefit our contractors. So it's everything from, you know, networking events, having our contractors be able to keep those relationships going, having one place for them to go to for that's always nice, right? The continuing education, we also do a lot with safety. So
Yeah.
I know the guy over at Cleveland, he is part of our safety committee, very impressive guy. And so being able to keep that knowledge shared, I think the big thing, just my passion on the association side is keeping that institutional knowledge, because obviously we do have an aging workforce, as we like to say. But, you know, to Scott's point earlier, you know, these guys are still part of the industry, right?
Yeah.
So how do we keep that institutional knowledge and also pass it down to the incoming generation, the ones who are especially stepping into those management roles? You know, the cool thing with our association and many of the associations on the trade side is that our companies are third, fourth, fifth generation, and how the dynamics change from generational leadership. That's been very interesting just since I've been in the construction industry to see. And then again, on the association side, like, yes, we want to be evolving and things like that, but there are certain things that, again, institutional, like
Yeah.
there are only certain ways to do things, and
Yeah.
we don't want to lose any of that.
I agree. What would you say to people who are on the fence about deciding whether or not to become a member of, the Atlanta Electrical Contractors Association? There we go. I got it.
Got it. I know.
read it off of her shirt.
Yes.
Hey, that's fine. That's where we keep it. Some face this way.
Yeah.
No, I think, the biggest thing, I'm always going to sell our association on the relationships.
Yeah.
You can be, a contractor in our association. We've got 45 roundabout. Obviously, where everybody's looking to get work, right?
Yeah.
But the relationships are what matter. And
Yeah.
so Cleveland might be doing the same type of work as the other big guy in town, right?
Yeah.
But they very much are on the same page with their communication. So we're all fighting for that work, but we're not fighting each other.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a big draw for the people that are interested in becoming a member is I need to make sure that we are providing content and relationships so they feel like they can be part of our association and be a better contractor
Yeah.
and be on the pulse for what's coming down the line.
I think that you touched on, for me, when I started my business years ago, when I made the decision to become part of an association, it did two things for me. One, outside accountability for training and safety.
That's true. Right.
Because the reality is I can be so focused on something, just like when I didn't acknowledge the guy that was balancing the system in our office. I can be so focused on something that I miss it, that sometimes I need someone to tap me on the shoulder and be like, hey, you really need to look at that. So that accountability and association is good for. The other thing when I started out was that it gave me, as a startup company, a level of credibility. I was part of association.
That's right.
The same association that Cleveland would be a part of, or you know what I mean? It was like,
That's right.
So that's the other thing that it does, and so it changes the type of work that you're going to have an opportunity to do. And so, as far as a company, I think it's really important to really consider that because the level of credibility and accountability that it gives you. But
I agree, and I'll tag on. I know I've mentioned the union, but all of our contractors get their labor from the union, right?
Yeah.
So if you've got a contractor, and this is again on any of the trades, if you've got a contractor who wants to join the union and things like that and get their labor, on our side, we're your negotiating arm, right? So there's a level of value for the contractor with showing up to meetings and things like
Yeah.
that and having your input, so then we can go and advocate for you on that contract negotiation side.
That's really
so
cool.
it's nice. Again, I enjoy understanding all the differences in our association, and at the same time being able to kind of get a consensus and speak as the voice of the electrical industry for Atlanta for our association, because we're all different, but like I said, we're all the same. It's kind of cool.
real quick, Scott, Cleveland, what type of electrical work do you guys do? Because there is a vast range of electrical work.
Oh, yes, definitely. Most of our work is commercial, light industrial.
Yeah.
We do a lot of transportation.
Okay.
Do a lot of data centers. Everybody and their grandmothers doing.
I was going to say
Data
that
centers.
in the United States of America, data centers are what's happening.
Yes, yeah. So that's a big portion of our work right now. Hospitals just got done with a large hospital here in Gainesville. So commercial, light industrial is kind of where we focus.
Okay. All right, so we're coming to a close here. I want to ask you both one more question each. This question, the first one is kind of a softball. I trick you into thinking that this is just an easy conversation, but I like to tell the story of when I was a young apprentice. I would ride in the van to the job site with, the journeyman or whoever it was that I was working with, and I learned the most in some of those long drives and conversations where they would share with me mistakes that they had made in their career, in their life, and they would share them from an honest perspective. And as a young man, I was able to look at them and be like, I can learn from that. So I'm going to ask you first.
Okay.
What's a mistake that you have made in life or in work that you would be willing to share with those who are listening so that they might be able to learn from that?
Probably going on a podcast one time.
That was quick. That was excellent.
That is not true. You should all email me to come on the podcast.
Yes, there's actually a line of people out here. I don't know what they're in line for. Biscuits. I would think a mistake that I've made as far as my career, I would say we talked about the diversity of things. At a point in my career, I kind of got pigeonholed into doing one aspect of electrical work.
Yeah.
And then, you kind of, all of a sudden you're just that guy.
Yeah.
And that's what you do.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to kind of do other things and then kind of get my experience doing other things. Like you said, there's a vast amount of different opportunities strictly within the electrical field.
Yeah.
And for instance, I wasn't that guy, but you get somebody. Well, he's the fire alarm dude.
Yeah.
And that's all he does.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
He's that guy.
Right.
And he gets pigeonholed into that one aspect, and it keeps him from, I guess, being exposed, getting that experience and knowledge about all the other things, because he was just that dude.
Yeah.
And so I probably did that a couple different times over my career, and maybe I could have been exposed to more things if I hadn't just done that.
For those men and women that are listening that are currently pigeonholed, how'd you break out of it? How did you do that? How did you become not that guy?
Bro, I ain't doing that no more. No,
that's a true statement right there. Having real and honest conversation with your
supervisor. It was like, dude, I want to do some other things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
if you don't ask or you don't talk, then they don't know.
That's right.
If you don't ask, the answer is always no.
Yeah.
So you just have to, hey man, I want to do some other things than this.
Yeah.
Hey, I appreciate the opportunity to be the fire alarm dude.
Yeah.
If that's where you're at, or I appreciate I want to kind of expand, spread my wings a little bit and get exposed. And the vast majority of people say, man, that's no problem. We're going to get you into some other things.
Yeah.
And you may have to go through a little bit of, but man, this is what we need you to do.
Yeah.
I understand, but when this is over, I want to do some other things.
Absolutely.
And most of the people I've worked around, there was like, I get that, man. I appreciate you've done this a long time. You need to do some other things, or you need to be exposed to some other things to be a more well-rounded electrician or professional.
Yeah.
And I tell guys, we're construction workers. We wear hard hats and boots, but we can still be professional. We're still professional.
Absolutely.
Right. For sure.
We can be professional electricians. So I've probably, been pigeonholed into a couple things over my career.
Well, and 100% of the things that you don't ask, you won't get an answer to.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. How about you, Liz? What's a mistake that you have made that you're willing to share with us?
So mine is going to be a slightly
It can be whatever.
opposite of Scott's, right? And especially on, any sort of, I would say, workforce development, community development side. Look, I love our industry.
Yeah.
I know Scott can tell you I'm very passionate. I hope everybody understands. Hope that's been conveyed. Mine is that burnout, and burnout in the sense that mine is burnout in the sense that because I love our industry, trying to be all things to all people. And
Are you a high achiever?
What?
Yeah. That's
Excuse
what I
me?
thought.
Type A? What?
Yeah.
So, trying to be all things to all people and, wanting to have all of the knowledge to help all of our contractors in all of these different areas because I do love our industry.
Yeah.
And so I think it has been, the mistake has been in crowding my schedule and am I allowed to cuss?
Oh, yeah, we don't edit anything. You can say whatever the hell you want.
I was actually just talking about this with a friend the other day. I was like, I don't like to half-ass anything, right? I like to use my full ass when I do
That's
everything.
not cussing to you and me. I was like, what?
Look, I'm trying to be.
That's flowery language.
I know. I'm trying to, trying
Yeah.
to be PC here for the kids.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think because I do have such a passion for our industry, it is spreading myself thin.
Yeah.
And so being able to take inventory, on a quarterly basis, sometimes even a monthly basis. I know I just told you when I showed up today, I was only in the office 4 days in March because I was in
Wow.
high schools and workforce events and conferences, and I'm like, dang, I need to slow down. And at the
Yeah.
same time, there's a ebb and flow to this workforce gig, right?
Yeah.
Because especially on the high schools, it's very much beginning of high school, beginning of the school year, and then that graduation season, and that's what we're in now.
Yeah.
And so it's being able to dig in, get the work done,
Yeah.
but also it's honestly, I am a high achiever, so it's that process improvement. So I'm like, where are the areas that are not highest and best use of my time? Where am I able to catch more flies with honey,
Yeah.
those types of things. So that's kind of the thing, I would say probably in the last 5 or 6 years that I've been a lot more mindful
Yeah.
because you cannot run yourself ragged.
Yeah.
I would say
I
that's
think-
been my mistake.
I think it's really interesting that you both come from opposite ends of the spectrum. And what I would say as an observer here is know who you are. Like, know who you are. And like, if you are more of a high achiever type person and type A personality, and you feel like you have to do everything, or if you are a person who feels like you want to do more things, just know who you are, because either one will burn you out.
Oh,
Being
100%.
trapped in one thing or being focused on too many things. Know who you are, and the importance of, there are all sorts of different things that you can do, whether it's Myers-Briggs or Clifton Strengths or whatever. Do those things.
Yes.
And that's one of the things I wish I would have done earlier in life to learn more about who I was and become more self-aware. So, well, Scott, Liz, I am so appreciative of you both stepping up to the line, giving real and honest conversation, and sharing and helping us lift the view of the skilled trades here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.